Hey guys, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. I'm trying to light that up a little bit more. It's dark in here. Apologies. One of these days I'll get a new webcam. Until then, hopefully you can see this. Sometimes I recommend just taking a screenshot and looking at it later if you're a visual person. But my intention with all of these videos is to assist in raising the frequency and the vibration with one another and on Mother Earth, and for the benevolence of all, and benevolence for all. So this is about a little bit about ascension symptoms, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk a little bit about the energy that we've all been feeling. I will be going, this is not a light language video, so if you're looking for a light language DNA activation, please check out one of my many other videos that I've done. And the rule of thumb is just to pick whatever you're guided to, because generally speaking, it's synchronistically what you might want to hear or need to hear in that now moment. So I'm talking a little bit about, in this Kiss Keep It Simple Starseeds video, just a simplified way to recognize if you're experiencing ascension symptoms, but just to kind of give us a little physical, bring it down to earth and reconnect with the physical body video. So I'm going to talk a little bit about emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being, because it's all connected. I'm going to talk a little bit about the downloads and upgrades that we've been receiving, and I'm just going to go for it. So the reason I was guided to do this video is my guides kept saying, go back to the beginning, go back to the beginning. And I didn't quite understand, and now I'm recognizing that a lot of the cycles that we've been in are coming in full circle. So sometimes people have experienced ascension symptoms and they're being triggered about things that they were triggered with, 5 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever it might be. And while I'm not getting into the specifics of that, it's also going back to the beginning for myself of get back to the basics. And so in a lot of sessions that I've been doing with beautiful light workers, not all of them, but I am finding one of the common denominators is that either A, we're really wrapped up in our ascension journey and we're not doing the things we need to do to anchor that energy and to stay in the physical, or vice the other way around, where we aren't doing the things and those things aren't activating within us in a faster way. So I'll talk a little bit about that too, because this is all in line with how to activate yourself on a physical level. But I won't go, a very basic rendition of that. So a lot of the upgrades, so I see activations and downloads as basically we go through this ascension together, we're waking up. So it's like we have these time capsules, nodes, or locks, if you will, which this is a very broad perspective. And what I'm sharing is based on my own journey. So take what resonates with you, and it may be very different than your journey. And this is just based on my own experiences and what I see through my higher guidance team. And what they've shown me is that these activations and downloads that happen, they, let's say, happen on a collective level, but they also happen on an individual level in different ways. So I'll back up and say that, for example, we are in the process of entering, without going too much into it, we've gone through some activations and upgrades. What happens is these locks lock into place, or technically unlock. They unlock certain patterns, memories, triggers within our physical vessel, our emotional body, our social, our earth, cosmic, galactic bodies. And so what happens is then it triggers certain responses. And this can be in the form of physical, emotional, spiritual, etc. So for example, for myself, my stages of this, and I'll go into stages in just a moment, it has been a mix of everything because of where I'm at in this process or journey. But for some people, if they're just waking up, so all of a sudden things are feeling really weird. Their ears are ringing, they feel sick, they feel off balance, they feel electrified, They can't sleep. They're exhausted. So again, for the physical ascension symptoms, if that's what you want to look up, I have a video just on that. I'm just giving a few examples of what might have been felt or being felt in the collective or in your own unique experience. And you can go back and watch that video. But essentially, things are shifting. And we are then, it's almost like these locks have combinations have come into place, and now these portals are being opened in the body, for example. And I'm focusing primarily on that. But I'm going to share a little bit about my story just to kind of tie it all in. So I'm going to start off by saying, too, that we're all in different stages. So while we just had a major ruby, sapphire, star, diamond activation in the collective, which that's a whole other video, our light body is being integrated or upgraded, all of the above, that's a whole other video. And our carbon-based structure is changing into a more crystalline structure, which I am working on all of those videos currently. But again, this is a simple video. So bottom line is that means our bodies are going to feel different. We're going to feel a little off sometimes. We're not going crazy. I work with so many beautiful starseeds who really, no matter what stage they're in, whatever stage you're in, there tends to be a common denominator where at times we're going to feel like we're losing it or we're going to feel alone. And that's why I started doing these videos in part, is you're not alone. We've all gone through this. We all will be going through this to some extent, or we're going through it right now. All of the above, right? So everything's happening now. So the reason that I'm sharing this, other than that, to express that you aren't alone, everybody's going through it to some extent. And I'm going to talk about that. So some people are just waking up and going, what is happening? I'm experiencing all these weird things. There must be something wrong with me. So I want to start off by going and saying that if you are really feeling sick, or if you're feeling mentally unstable or emotionally unstable, we're in a 3D reality. It's okay to go to the doctor, go to the psychiatrist or counselor or whatever it is that you feel like you need to do. Honor your body. Honor where you are at in your process. So I'm going to start off by saying that, because oftentimes when we experience these things, we need that validation, or we feel like we need that validation. Sometimes when I work with beautiful starseeds, that's all we're doing is talking about it, and that's okay. So do open up and talk about it with others if that's something you feel drawn to do, especially in these different groups that you can find on Facebook and YouTube and all of that. And that's part of this community. But I also want to take it a step further and say, one of the from my perspective and my own experience, I can share is pay attention to what you're feeling, but don't obsess over it. So part of that obsession that sometimes we can develop, not only in the beginning, but also through all of these stages, is can make it feel worse. Because when we obsess over something, we're actually in resistance. And I'll get to that a little bit later. That's more of the emotional aspect. So pay attention. If you feel the need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor. So this can manifest these different feelings and these activations. And I'm going to give an example. So for myself, I became very physically ill, and it manifested for me first really in the physical. And because of that, I felt like I had to go to the doctor to find out what was wrong with me. And then when I went to the doctor and found out there was nothing wrong with me, after an MRI, a CAT scan, the neurologist, the emergency room, blood tests umpteen times, and multiple visits to the doctor, I then had to decide on my own that I had to make some changes. So that's a whole other video. There's another layer to that. But essentially, when you go through this, it can then create an emotional aspect. And I'm starting off the physical, taking that out, because then if you're sick or you've got something going on, and you can feel alone in this because nobody necessarily understands what you're going through besides you. You can tell someone that you have this or you're experiencing that, and they're sometimes like, uh-huh, okay, Carrie, sure, you know. Especially if you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, I don't know what's wrong with you. Maybe maybe you're mentally or emotionally depressed. So I'm sharing this with you because depression can be part of this as well as anxiety, and as well as emotional feelings of ups and downs that are associated with all of this. So there is a psychological, emotional aspect. Everything's connected. So sometimes the reason I'm sharing this is if you go to the doctor and the doctor says nothing's wrong with you, and your family, friends, or loved ones are like, well, maybe you need to go to a psychiatrist, or you're emotionally disturbed. Maybe you're going through the change. Maybe you're going through a sense of post-traumatic stress disorder. And while those are very feasible and they can be something that you're experiencing, sometimes it's important to differentiate between those a little bit and recognize that these ascension symptoms can be adding to those things. And there's all kinds of things. I could go on and on. Maybe you're going through some relationship changes, whatever it might be. But I'm starting off with the physical because the physical can trigger the spiritual, emotional, social, etc. So if you're really feeling sick and you don't know what's wrong with you and you feel alone about it, that can then trigger depression. You might be experiencing symptoms that can trigger anxiety. And I'll get to that in just a moment with the sleeping. I talked a lot about this in the Ascension symptom video. So maybe check that out if that's really what you're focused on right now. But again, don't even obsess over the symptoms. Just go get checked out, get your validation if that's what you feel you need to do, and then move forward. Because if there is something that is physically wrong in the sense that it needs to be addressed, finding out getting your blood checked out is never a bad thing. You could go to your local nutrition store and they can do some tests for $50, I think, and see maybe if you're having some imbalances in your vitamins. Sometimes people have too much potassium or too much magnesium, and it can be causing some things. Sometimes heavy metals can make all of this a lot worse. So I'm just sharing those things. But there is that emotional aspect, and sometimes it's that you're feeling all these crazy things because, we took the red pill. So again, I'm going to go backwards. If you haven't seen The Matrix, I encourage you to check that movie out. But maybe if you feel guided to, it's kind of a little freaky for some people. So, but the point is that there's that scene from Woodstock. You might have taken the orange pill. Breathe. Just relax. You're on the planet Earth, right? Because we sometimes feel like, whoa, what is happening? I'm losing it. We're all going through this together at different stages. And that's part of this process, because the norm that we have been taught to believe and that is structured around is not what it used to be. It's not really what it ever was. That's another video. So we're going to talk a little bit about, okay, so back to that. Breathe. Get in a space of coherence, meaning heart-centered energy. Try to get out of the head about all of this, not obsessing over it, and come back into that space of coherence. 5 counts in and 5 counts out for 2 minutes. That's the easiest exercise to get out of your head and get back into the heart and get into the body. So again, there's a couple videos. I will share the links on that. Now, everybody's at different stages. So when we have these activations and downloads and essentially these locks unlock, they can allow a lot of information to flood the system. And that's where that electrical stimulation kind of happens, or not sleeping, which this can all trigger anxiety in the body. And I want to be very clear that a feeling of anxiousness, if not brought into coherence, will then turn into anxiety, if that makes sense. So that's why it's really important to just breathe and do what you need to do to pay attention to what your body's telling you. So I'll get into that in just a little bit. So in the beginning, these things happen and we just think that something's wrong with us. And there's other people that are in the beginning, and everybody's at a different stage. So where mine started out very physical and then morphed into the emotional and the clearing and the social and all of that, some people are not experiencing the physical. They're going through the social or emotional symptoms, we'll call them. For example, many people are experiencing what's been referred to as the dark night of the soul. That's not what this video is going to really talk about, but you can Google that and there's a lot of information on it. I might have done a video on it at one point. I can't remember. But recognizing as above, so below. So as we go through these carbon-based molecular changes into a crystalline frequency, our DNA is shifting, our body is changing, our earth is changing, everything is shifting. Therefore, so is what's happening around us. And essentially everything is a mirror reflection of what is out of balance or what needs to change or what is going through a change in order to integrate or morph into something else or essentially shift. So while that is part of this, again, it's important to physically be in this space, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So we're going through this physical, emotional, spiritual reset button, essentially. So whatever stage you are at, for me, again, you might be, so the emotional aspect, maybe your relationships are falling apart or work is blowing up or your social situations are falling apart or you feel alone. I could go on and on and on. This, in a sense, could trigger the physical onset, or it's happening and you just don't recognize that they're all connected. So it's all works hand in hand, right? So whatever stage you're at, and then there's another layer of stages of development. For example, some people are just getting these weird symptoms, but they don't know anything about the third eye, the intuition, the pineal, and all of these other layers. And that's the stage they're at. Other people's hearts are coming open and they're really emotional and they're happy and then they're sad and then they're happy and then they're sad. But intuitively, they don't know what's going on. Then there's other stages. So I hope you guys kind of follow where I'm going with this. Everybody is in a different stage of development. So recognizing that just because I'm feeling this way doesn't mean that your neighbor is feeling the same way. However, it's all tied together in a collective experience because of the way that we're all ascending together, if that makes sense from my perspective. So somebody might be in the very beginning stages and, maybe you're already past all of this, so to speak, and the person who is experiencing this and you're like, it's just ascension symptoms, you're fine. But they might need to go through and do the things they need to do in the layers. They need to do things in order to integrate it all, if that makes sense. And then at the other end of the spectrum, if you're a pro at this, it's also staying in that space of anchoring these energies because that's really what those pros came here to do, right? In one perspective, among many other things. So I'm going to start with the physical. I do want to say briefly that it's been very electric for a lot of people. You're not alone. You are on the planet Earth and we're all in this together. Many people are experiencing electrifying energies. So also realizing that some of these symptoms can make you awake, meaning you can't sleep. So recognizing, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So let me just start off by the physical. Breathe, no matter where you're at, what stage you're in, get back into the breath, which puts you into the body and takes you out of the mind. So really focusing on getting into that space of coherence. I talk about heart math a lot. I'll include a link to the video on how to tell if you're in the heart versus your head. Get into the heart. Pay attention to what the body's doing, but don't obsess over it, because that takes you out of being present and puts you back into this anxiousness feeling. Getting out of resistance. So when we're obsessing over something or when we're focusing on something, we're resisting. When we're thinking there's got to be something wrong with me, I can't believe, judgment, all of that, that's resistance. So breathe 5 counts in and 5 counts out for 2 minutes, focusing on the breath, where it goes into the body. And I've done some videos on that. So paying attention to where you're at. If you're in a space, I can't remember if I mentioned this, so I'm going to say it again. Oh, yeah. If you feel like you need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor. But if you've already been to the doctor and you've gotten the, okay, you're good to go, then it's a good time to start really focusing on where you need to find balance in your life. So for me, I was really imbalanced. And so I can't hit pause because I'm doing this on my old system. But I'm just kind of checking right now. So where are you not finding balance? That's why it's sometimes good to get blood work done, because it can tell you if your magnesium levels are off or if your potassium levels are off. So let me just start off by saying, for me, I had been really not in balance with a lot of things. I hadn't really detoxed, and so my body put me into instant detox. It was like anything that I did that was out of balance, I would go into detoxification. I didn't realize that that's what detoxification feels like because I'd really never done a detox. So I'm going to start off by saying that if you're going to try, one of the things that's recommended by not only a lot of doctors, and again, this isn't medical advice, this is just what I had to do. I had to cut out quite a few things to find out what wasn't working for me. So I cut out meat, I cut out most dairy, I cut out most sugar unless it was coming from fruits and vegetables, and I cut out alcohol. I think I stopped drinking for about 6 weeks. You might stop drinking altogether. Recognize if you do something drastic like that, it's good because it can help you recognize, oh, and gluten. I never cut out the gluten, but it's good for some people that are just not sure why they're reacting the way that they are to kind of narrow down what's going to make it worse. So I've had a lot of people I know that did all that and were still really sick. Ascension. Welcome to Ascension. We took the red pill as part of the process. So our bodies are changing. And so it may not be that you're allergic to gluten or soy. It may not be that you're allergic to dairy. It may not be sugar. It might just be the way that your body is reacting to those activations and downloads that are coming in. But it certainly doesn't hurt to get rid of those things that your body is telling you it's time to make a change. So for me, I cut out a lot of things, and I recognized by reading the labels. So read the labels on your food, pay attention to what you're eating. I did a food journal, and I documented when my symptoms were stronger, when they were lighter, and all of that. I'm not saying that you have to do that necessarily, but I discovered that I was overdosing on magnesium. Even though my magnesium levels were fine, I was taking magnesium and I would get really twitchy from it. Part of the symptoms is twitchiness anyways. Sometimes you might twitch at night. Sometimes it's electrical. We don't need to make it worse. So I was already having enough magnesium in all of the foods and vegetables I was eating. So that's something else to keep in mind. Maybe you don't need as many supplements as you think you do. So maybe go to a nutritionist and figure all of this out. So my point is narrowing down what your body no longer wants. Your food habits may change. What you used to eat may not work anymore. What was very fine in a carbon-based molecular structure that is now morphing into a crystalline structure, the density doesn't fit well into it. So I cut out meat, but do this in a balanced way. I did not do this in a balanced way, and it made my symptoms worse. Keep in mind also, if you're detoxifying, you may become more sensitive. Your spidey senses might tingle more, and that can freak some people out because they may not be used to it. So recognize that this all goes hand in hand, and the more balanced you can be with it, the smoother process it might be for you. So reading the labels of what you're eating, how much sugar are you putting into your system, and all of that. So the first step might be in cutting out some of the foods that maybe you're allergic to or that are not beneficial for you. That's what I did. The other thing that I did was I did a detoxification because I was so sick, and most of the symptoms I had were very close to heavy metal toxicity. And heavy metal toxicity isn't always easy to prove that you have it, especially with mercury. It moves around in the body, and I'm not going to get into all of that, but I thought it's not going to hurt to detoxify the metals from my system. So I did a heavy metal detox, and again, I'll add to this video in the notes what I did as maybe over the course of the next week. So it's an easy reference for you guys, but you can Google how to detox heavy metals. I also removed all of the silver fillings from my teeth. And also, what else did I do? Changed a lot of my foods. I was no longer eating fish, but I also had been, previous to getting sick, eating a lot of fish because I was cutting out red meat. My point is, it's all about balance. So I'm now a vegetarian, and that works for me. And it's up to others. I'm almost vegan. There's certain times that I don't pay attention and I cheat with certain foods like honey. So I can't call myself a vegan. But having said that, that has assisted me to help integrate these energies a bit better and to almost, what do they call it, manage my symptoms. So it's almost like thinking about this as ascension management. I guess maybe that's what I'll start calling these Keep It Simple Starseed. Ascension management. I like that. So in a balanced way. Also, so when you detoxify, it could be that you might want to detoxify heavy metals. Got a lot of thunder in the background here. It's pretty cool. The other thing to detoxify are sugars and alcohol. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that you do this all at once because, again, it could have that even worse effect on you. So maybe doing it in spurts, do what you're guided to do. I did it all at once because I became so sick I had to. I wouldn't recommend that for everybody else. So then doing the detoxification process from alcohol and most sugars was part of what I did, which also brought me into alkalinity. I was very acidic before. I will share a link with you guys on the program that I used. A friend shared with me, and I signed up for it years ago. And when I got really sick, I got back on it, and it did help me. So alkaline. There's so much information on getting alkaline. What I will share with you is the alkaline for dummies kind of thing, where if you just want to do it through supplements and shakes. But you can do it just by apple cider vinegar, lemon water every morning, and lots of leafy green vegetables. But it's good to notice, you can buy the little pH strips and see if you're acidic or not. And that'll change your entire system. For those people who are really busy and aren't able to do it, that's where the alkaline system that my friend signed me up for helped me. And I still love the greens mix and the vitamins, and I take them from time to time too. So I'll share that with you guys on a link in the next week if you want to come back and check that out. What else? Okay. So reading the labels. I was really surprised because I switched to vegetarian. I was getting so much magnesium in my system that I didn't need to take the supplements anymore. In addition to that, I was really overdoing the potassium. And I would get weird symptoms from I started to notice when I ate certain foods, it would feel a certain way. Your body does start to become more sensitive. you can ask the yes or no question. And that's another video on, I'm going to add as part 2 to, we'll call it Ascension Management, part 2. And it will be how, so this is simultaneous with part of how to activate. If you aren't feeling anything, or you're feeling the symptoms, but you're not feeling like your third eye is activating, or you're in tune at all with your higher self, this will be helpful. Vice versa. If you're really spaced out and you're freaking out, this will be helpful too, because it's important to ground and eat those foods that assist you in grounding. So that's my next thing, is not just eating a lot of leafy greens, but also if you're really spaced out, maybe you're already doing all of that, it's important to do grounding, walk barefoot on the earth as much as possible, but also eat potatoes, carrots, all of those things. Look it up. Root vegetables. Okay. Energy. Tired? Take a nap. Sleep. Energized? Get up. Exercise. When I was really sick and I would get these electrical impulses at night, I would get up and my whole body would be shaking. My tongue felt like I was literally stuck in a light socket. And it was all of this energy moving through my body. Hopefully you don't have quite those symptoms. I'm also very sensitive to lightning and thunderstorms. I've got goosebumps right now but anyways, I would get up and do yoga. I mean, it was like I had to move. So exercise is really, really important. So if you don't feel like exercising, stretch. Do some things to help the energy move around. If you feel too energized to meditate, go for a walk. If you feel too sleepy to go for a walk, meditate. You can listen to binaural beats they're all over YouTube. Perhaps I'll add those links also. I think I have them on my playlist of what I subscribe to. No, playlists. I've got a few lists for you guys you can check out on this channel. Take a lot of baths. Get into the shower, running water. Get out into the ocean. Get into a river or stream. It helps to kind of pull out the density and just give you a refresh, and it helps you in that refresh button. One thing I might recommend though is if you're doing a cleanse, it's great to do Epsom salt baths, but you can also overdo that as well. So if you already have a lot of magnesium in your system, also doing too much Epsom salt will make you detox really fast, just like vitamin C. You guys can look this all up. Balance. So if you do too much, it can kind of throw your system out of whack too and make you feel even crazier. So just sharing, balance that out. If you feel like you've got too many things going on electrically, excuse me, or shaky, maybe just do pink Himalayan salt in your bath and not the Epsom salt. So, and obviously if you have high blood pressure or something like that, do what you're supposed to do. Not necessarily this is all what worked for me. So it's not medical advice. We all, again, pay attention and listen to our body and listen to what we're supposed to be doing. I'm going to end on that note. You know, you can get body work done, cranial sacral therapy, drink a lot of water. So I'm going to move into that and talk briefly about that, and I'll be touching on this in my next video on the pineal gland. A lot of us, our throat chakras are coming online. Our FOXP2 gene is activating within the body. All of our FOX genes are activating, really, which has to do with protein integration. I'm still learning about all this. But bottom line is our pineal gland is activating in a lot of us. Our crown chakra is opening for a lot of people. Some people's hearts are still coming online. Some people that were really dense are still having some, and I don't say that in a negative, it's just the different layers. Some people's crowns, hearts, and throats are wide open, but they still have fear and some sense of lack of security. So it can flip-flop, but that's another video. Essentially, yeah, so drinking a lot of water. I would highly recommend Don't drink purified water, drink spring water. Something that does not have fluoride. Fluoride will make you feel even more tired. What's happening is our bodies are trying to wake up, and one of the reasons it's good to detox is all of the metals and all of the fluoride in our waters. Water is part of what's making these symptoms, I feel from my perspective, worse for people, because it gives us just like if someone is addicted to a drug, for example, and they go through a detoxification, it's horrific until they get through it, right? For some people, we have so much built up in our system that it's making the symptoms even worse because we're flushing all of that out, and it is a process. So the more you can do to help get rid of the fluoride and the metals, the better. So organic foods, clean, pure water, and getting rid of those metals are really key. So for me, I did a lot of red onion and cilantro. I was doing, I have a Berkey water filter that I got quite a while ago, and I've been drinking that probably for about a year now. And if I buy any bottled water, it is from the source. But I also look up online to make sure that the source isn't, there's some places that maybe are next to they're bottled where the water might be contaminated with pesticides. So you might want to check that out. I'm going to say mountain water is probably better than water that's bottled from an underground spring if it's located someplace that is next to a farming area where there's a lot of pesticides running off into the water. So I'm going to end on that note. I'll talk a little bit more about the stages of why is my pineal, or why is my third eye not coming online. There's a lot of stuff on that, and I'll share that in another video. I've got so much more to share, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this helps. In love and light, namaste.